Get the advice you need from your local real estate pros. Here are your hosts, Jim DePola and Johnny C. live on Real Radio.
Good Saturday morning. Welcome to another edition of Florida Talk Real Estate. We got you for the next 2 hours of infotainment. And thank you for being with us on the old radio there, 92.1, 101.7. We salute you. Maybe you choose the live stream with us on a Saturday. You can do that as well. Find Florida Talk Real Estate live streaming on Facebook and on YouTube as well. That's Florida Talk Real Estate LLC. Thank you if you're joining us on either one of those live streams. And of course, we are worldwide with your free download, your iHeartRadio app. Yeah, worldwide. Even a toll-free number to be a part of the program with your questions, comments, concerns in the world of real estate. 877-927-6969. Be a part of the program. If you dial that up, the first voice you'll hear, the melodious tones of our producer extraordinaire, Jimothy, my brother from another mother. How are you?
Doing mighty fine. Good morning, Johnny. How are you?
I'm awesome, my friend. Nice to see you as always. I'm Johnny C., your old buddy, your pal. It's always a pleasure to say good morning to Ross Komarinetz with Brightway Insurance, Juno Beach, starting off our starting lineup on a Saturday morning. How are you, my dude?
I know. Doing well, man. How about you?
Awesome. Good to see you.
Good. You know, when you talk about we're live on the radio and talking about people listening, I picture like black and white people, kind of the family gathered around the big radio, just absorbing what we're talking about.
I'm glad you're there with me because, when they hear the music start, they all run to the living room.
Right.
They're like, we can't miss.
Daddy.
Ross is on this weekend. I love it so much. Good to see you, my dude. And always a pleasure to say good morning to our fearless leader. I've told you for 12 plus years now that he runs a top producing Keller Williams team. Keller Williams Innovations. You find the Florida Home Pros team. And my guy, Jimmy D. There's Jim DePola. Jimmy D, how you be?
Hey, Johnny. Hey, happy South Florida, everybody. Hey, Ross. Hey, Jimothy. Have a happy Saturday today. We got a lot to talk about today.
Yes.
We're going to do the shout outs and we're going to talk about sinkholes. We're going to talk about insurance because there's so much going on, Ross, with the insurance. So glad to have you here today. So anybody that has any questions about homeowners insurance, and I know people listening right now, there's people out there right now that have questions about homeowners insurance because it's one of the biggest real estate issues that are going on in Florida. So if you have any questions, you have a question where your insurance company is asking you to, what do you call that, Ross, when they give you a report saying that there's other companies that can insure you?
The Citizens Depopulation Program?
The depopulation. Maybe you're a victim of or not necessarily a victim because sometimes it's a good thing, but maybe you've been asked to depopulate. Are you a depopulator? You have questions? Maybe you have a question about your roof and they're telling you, you got to replace your roof. Well, we know here in this studio that sometimes you don't have to replace the roof when the insurance company asks you, at least not right that minute.
Right.
So if you have any kind of questions or about not insuring, we've had people call us up and say, I don't want to insure my house. What are the repercussions of that?
Self-insuring.
Yeah, just self-insuring. So let's see if we can get into that. Johnny, I'm really glad to have you back in the studio today because one of the things I really want to talk to you is about I found a National Association of Realtors report from 1994, so 30 years ago, to show the difference of the real estate market in South Florida, this area right here today, compared to 30 years ago. Is very fascinating. So we're going to talk about that.
That's cool.
And we have a whole bunch of other stuff, but most importantly, we just want your questions on the air. So how do they contact us?
It's easy, 877-927-6969. Just pick up your phone and dial that up. We'll get you on the air. Questions, comments, concerns in the world of real estate. Don't hesitate. 877-927-6969. It's working. Yeah, they work.
Checking the phone lines.
Yep.
Look at that.
Okay.
Look at that. Open lines.
Good.
There we go.
All right. So that we're not just, stroking you when we say it.
Yeah.
It's real. And of course, always remember Florida Talk Real Estate is .com. I mean, Jim, what do you do on that side of the glasses?
That's why the table's here and the bottom half of me is covered.
Yes, sir. Well, that's my plight. Florida Talk Real Estate is .com. Always remember access to the entire team at floridatalkrealestate.com.
Let me, while I'm just pulling something up real quick, I wanted to just talk about that sinkhole a little bit. The reason why I'm bringing this up is we had a really funny caller in 2013. I never remembered the year of when this caller came, called us up. It's one of my favorite stories all time on this show. Now I've narrowed it down to the year.
Okay.
So now I only got to listen to 52 shows.
That's not bad.
So I got to listen 104 hours to find this, but then I can narrow it down even more. I realized that Matt Miles from My Safe Home Inspection, he was on the show that week. So if
Okay.
Matt's not on the show, that means I could knock that part out.
can
So
skip
that
that
narrows it. So I might be down to like 37 or something. By the way, wishing you the best, Matt. Hope you're doing well. Matt has always been a GC. One of the reasons why we used him for My Safe Home Inspections on the show as a property inspector, but now he's really going full time as a GC for years, and he's been very happy doing that. So congratulations, Matt.
Yes.
Okay, I found it. Hold on here. This is just for the shout outs, guys. Okay, my first shout out.
I thought we were doing sinkholes.
No, we're gonna get into.
Oh.
I was just trying to waste some time while I was trying to get this stuff done. So hold on here one second. Wanted to say congratulations to Joe and April. We just closed on their property either Tuesday or Wednesday of last week. This one was kind of interesting in the fact it was it was on Lake Clark, but it wasn't part of Lake Clark Shores. It was actually Lake Worth. So that made it a little different. So Lake Clark Shores, Lake Clark is a very popular inland lake that people use, and it's the homes usually surrounding it on the water are very valuable because the lake is so large.
Mm-hmm.
They've even talked about trying to dredge to get the lake to the intercoastal somehow for ocean access, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. Mm-hmm. In fact, that's why Joe and April bought this property many years ago, was because they thought that the dredge was going to happen and they thought it would increase the value a lot. That never happened. And then time passed and it was time for them to downsize. So they felt at this time of their life, plus what was happening in the market, it was better for them to sell their house. Now, because of what they're just trying to decide afterwards, what they decided was they weren't going to buy again, although they do want to become a homeowner. They also have this dream that they're going to renovate an RV that they're already working on and travel around.
Yes.
Which is awesome. Isn't that
Popular
awesome?
trend right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they want to take time. So they found a really good rental place. They took the equity from their house and paid like a year up front, right? And now they're just going to live there, renovate the RV, see if they like that lifestyle or not, and then eventually buy something afterwards.
Super cool.
So it was very, very cool. What was unusual about this property was the time it took to sell it for me. I'm just being real with you. It took us 78 days to put this house under contract. And there was a couple of reasons for that. When we put the house on the market, it was right before Halloween. Okay. And we knew we were getting right into season. That's when the interest rates were almost at the highest point. We weren't decreasing yet. We were still going up because we hit the highest of the year in November. So in October, we were well on the way there. Mm-hmm. They weren't sure if they wanted to put it on the market early. And what I've always told people about season, because people think between roughly Thanksgiving through New Year's that it's not a good time to put a house on the market. That's been my little honey hole, and I've always done that, where I just go ahead and put it on the market during that time because less people are going on the market, so yours stands out faster.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Also, you're not going to get as many showings, but the people that are coming are usually more serious.
Pretty serious, yeah.
So what happened was what we had is a double whammy. We had the season, which I expected, but we had interest rates continuing to climb, which really made the buyers go away. So we called them right at the beginning of the year and said to Joe and April, was like, look, we know that we had a very slow time up to New Year's. We think that people are going to start coming back to the market. We really think they took a break this season, which you usually don't do. And within the next couple of days, they started getting multiple showings, and then we got them into contract, and they closed on Wednesday. So thank you so much for trusting us. They were so happy.
Yeah, I bet.
I've been a little busy this week, so I haven't put the post out, but thank you so much, Joe and April, for trusting me to do your job. It was funny. Joe is a big fan of the shows,
awesome.
Right? So she asked, she right away was like, we got to interview this guy. And April wasn't so sure. He's like, you're going to call the crazy radio people? It's like, why are you calling a radio station to sell your house? But by the time April gave me hugs and kisses at the end, because she was very happy, and I'm very glad to have worked with them and met them, and now they're part of the tribe. So
Yeah.
we'll be talking to them all
One
the
of
time.
us.
Thank you.
You know, it's a double-edged sword. You know, we're so good on the radio that people think we're just radio stars. But in reality, you know,
Well,
you're
you
a real
are.
estate agent. I'm an insurance guy. Johnny's the only star, and Jimmy here.
Well,
But
Jimmy's the star.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the one that holds that beacon.
I started burning out a while ago.
I think I called him. Didn't you called him before the hardest working man in showbiz or something?
Oh yeah, for
Yep.
sure. Yeah,
Yep.
it would
Did you
take
give
at
me
least.
that? Who gave me
I would
that?
say
Was
Greek
that you?
probably, but
Oh,
at least 3 people to replace him.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, congratulations to those guys. Thank you for trusting. He's talking about the radio show and trying to interview for jobs. It's so interesting when I go to houses. I'm getting pretty good at reading what's happening when I go there. A lot of times I'll go up, and whoever listens to the show, usually it's the guy, because WZZR for whatever reason seems to be, well, it isn't as male dominated as I think. I think it's like 60-40-ish.
Feels about right.
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. But it seems like way more guys call up when they need real estate questions.
Remember that target demo, men 25-54. So
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's kind of what's happening.
uh-huh.
So I'll get to the
No
house.
offense, ladies.
So when I get to the house for listening point, it's very interesting when they have a spouse, because usually the spouse has never heard the show, doesn't know anything, and then it becomes one person's really interested in interviewing with you, the other person's wondering why the heck you're even there. And so what you have to do is you have to direct a conversation to the person that doesn't know you very well.
Mm-hmm.
And usually what I do is I show them my stats first so they understand where I'm coming from. I'm not just some kind of radio show guy. I'm in production.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Oh, what? What just happened?
Just flop your stats out on the table. Nice.
Oh, wow. Hold on.
I just saw something. I was watching an old rerun of Nip Tuck, and something really funny happened in that, but I can't say it on the air. You'll just have to
That's a
think
great
about
show.
it.
Right, I can dump it.
So you have to psychologically, you have to sit down and like explain to the other person why the spouse wants you in the room. And usually it works. Sometimes it doesn't, but I always appreciate the interview for the job. And that's the other thing I want to ask. If you're listening to this and you're thinking about hiring somebody, please don't do this. Don't do it. Say, oh, I'm going to give this to so-and-so because I know them and they're a friend and I want to, quote, give them the commission.
I saw an ad on the bus stop.
Uh-huh.
I was going to call him.
You want to give him the commission? He looks nice. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
I don't know how else to put this, but that might be the dumbest reason to pick a realtor. You know,
Well-
I want just cut him a check.
Yeah, exactly.
Just if you want to give him money, give him money. Go hire a professional that's going to do your job right and give the person money that you want to give money. That's the way you should handle that.
It's funny because if things go smooth and you're lucky and everything goes pretty smoothly, you might not ever have a problem. It might be okay to do that.
Maybe.
Right?
Maybe.
But if something does go wrong or something happens and you don't have that and you're not hiring the person because they're really good at what they do
Mhm.
and that they understand all the facets of the profession, and you're just hiring them because you like the person, that could be a real problem for you in the long run, cost you a lot of money.
Sure could.
And I don't know how many agents I talk to every week that don't understand certain things, right? We had somebody recently turn in where they wanted seller concessions from the seller, where the seller gives a contribution to pay for closing costs or down payment, but the amount they were asking for did not meet the requirements of the loan that they were going to use to get the house.
Oh boy.
Now, why is the listing agent the one to tell the buyer that isn't going to work?
It shouldn't be. No.
Right. And the buyer's agent's like, really? And I was like, yeah, I talked to your mortgage broker about it.
But the good news in this situation is at least one half of this equation is pretty well versed in what they do. And you guys didn't get all the way to a way deeper point of this situation and find out it's not going to work.
Which could happen.
Which could happen. Yeah.
So if you have any real estate questions today, you could give us a call and we'll be more than happy to give you some tips about buying or selling your house. Or if you have a question about maybe it's a good time to buy or a bad time to buy or sell.
Absolutely.
I get that all the time right now. So give us a call.
877-927-6969. Questions, comments, concerns on the real estate. You want to jump into the conversation? Of course, if you want to talk about listing, selling, buying, Jim can handle all that. And insurance is on top of mind. Believe me, Ross deals with it every day. I think he deals with it in his sleep, possibly. He is here for you as well. 877-927-6969. If we cannot get you an answer on air, believe me, you're getting that answer off air. And you can always reach out off the air as well. FloridaTalkRealEstate.com.
So one of the things that we're very good on this show is being transparent and honest. So we tell everything, warts and blemishes. So I just confessed that my other house sold in 78 days, which really isn't that bad compared to the market in that neighborhood. But to me, that was a long time. I was like, Jesus, let's sell a house already, right?
Old Jim would have sold 3 houses during that time.
Well, congratulations to Katie and John. They just closed on their house this week. This is the 4th property that we have done together. So I really appreciate them trusting me time and time again.
Yeah.
John came to us about a year ago and said, Jim, I own a pool company. It's time for me and my wife, Katie, to sell everything. I got a couple investment properties and I want to move somewhere in Central Florida somewhere. And I just want to be away from it all. So we said, well, this is what we could do. We went over each of the properties at the initial consultation. We went over all the properties. We tried to figure out what would sell at what price. They decided, of course, they wanted to sell their homestead last because they needed to find a new home. And then we got them with the top agent in Central Florida. And they ended up buying a 20-acre ranch up in Lake City. And they were working like dogs on it. Supposedly it's a gorgeous spread. I can't wait to see it.
Okay.
And
Does it have a pool?
I don't know if it has a pool or
It has
not.
a pond.
Why
Pond
would you
would be
ask
good for
that?
you.
Pool or pond?
A pool or
would be good
pond.
for you.
Yeah. So
Nice Caddyshack.
yeah. Oh, that's it. That's right. Oh yeah, you could use the pond. I have a
Yeah.
pool, but you could use the pond.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
get that. So by the way, Lacey
Cannonball.
Underalls just passed
Yeah, I
2
saw
weeks
that.
ago or something.
Saw that.
Yeah.
Young too, like 68 or something.
Yeah,
like that,
she was
69 years
younger.
old.
Yeah. So with John and Katie, we sold the first 2 properties while they were looking for their new home. They got the new home, and they used the proceeds from the sale of the other 2 houses to get the new home, and they could afford. They used Mike, and they could afford. They could afford to carry both mortgages. Oh, I think they didn't have a mortgage on the other house, so they bought the other house. Then they were ready to sell their house. So we put their house on the market. We sold it in 4 days. We had a massive bidding war on this. And here's the interesting part. We didn't put this house on the market until December 12th. So we had a massive bidding war. And meanwhile, the other house, we put it on in early or late October, and we didn't, took us 78 days.
Mm-hmm.
So with this one, we had a bidding war. We went way above list price. I didn't think that it was going to appraise. I was like, we're just talking with fake numbers now. It doesn't matter anymore. But in a way, it was good that that the negotiations went that way, because there was a massive reduction needed for a problem with the pool that I wasn't aware of. And even with the massive reduction, John and Katie did very well. They got about 4% more than they thought they were going to get, even with the problem with the pool. So they were very happy, and congratulations. And thank you for trusting us for all of those real estate needs, John and Katie, and wishing you the best in Lake City.
Oh yeah. That's a cool thing.
Yeah.
When it all
20
comes
acres.
together.
That's pretty awesome.
He's a really hard worker. He's like, he's a military kid, and I don't know if he was in the military, but he acts like a military guy, meaning like his demeanor. And when he says he's going to do something, he does it, and he expects you to do it too, right? Makes sure, right?
Calls you sir.
Yeah, he does. And he's a really great guy. And he's working so hard up there, but one of the things he's thinking of starting, and I saw this on Shark Tank, goats to clear land. Have you heard about that?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, so they were thinking they're
No kidding.
supposedly up there. They're doing that up there.
Oh wow.
And there's a whole business thing. So he's checking into it. He's got 20 acres, so you could put them there until they need to be moved onto other people's property to clear the land. What a cool thing, right? Goat herder.
Yeah.
When you retire,
You
become
get
a
a
goat
staff
herder. Yeah,
in a
exactly.
flowing robe.
Robe.
So.
With the robe.
Shoots lightning bolts out.
That is so cool.
Carry on a tablet.
So,
Way to paint a picture, Ross.
So getting back to the sinkholes. Okay, I wanted to get back to the sinkholes, if you don't mind. With the sinkhole, I was reading this article. Let me pull it up. And I was like, wow, I can't believe this. Now I can find out my favorite conversation.
877-927-6969 if you'd like to be a part of your favorite conversation.
Before the show, I'd mentioned that, Ross, that we were talking about one that happened the other day. It was up in Polk County, by the way. You
Okay.
asked where
Polk.
it was. It was in Polk. And the reason why we were talking about it the other day in Penthouse was because it got bigger. So we talked to, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or something about it. It was like a 15-footer. Now it's like almost double the size. But they've, obviously now they've got to move out and do all kinds of other things. And that's why we were talking about it. And a question came up, and I obviously immediately thought of you. Are sinkholes covered under homeowners? Or are they a separate policy, like flood?
So your policy automatically comes with what's called catastrophic ground cover collapse.
Okay.
And that's basically sinkhole coverage the way that you would think about it. Hole opens up underneath your house, swallows it, can't live there anymore, you're covered. You can buy separate sinkhole coverage, which is a little bit broader. It used to automatically come on every single policy, but kind of like the roof situation, there was a sinkhole fraud situation probably about, I don't know, 10 years ago.
Wait a second.
Sinkhole fraud?
How can you get sinkhole fraud? What are you doing? Dynamiting under your house or something to make it open? It goes under.
No,
the
so
ground?
the way that the stat, like, is the coverage for sinkhole, the way it's defined is fairly broad.
Mm-hmm.
And in like Central Florida, people were canvassing neighborhoods and like saying, hey, you have a crack in your driveway, or your house settled a little bit on your, in the, whatever on the stucco. You can file a claim against a sinkhole coverage and pay off your
for
house.
Like settling or something.
Yeah, because if like I said, the way the coverage would kick in is a little broad, and so as long as there's, I think, whatever the claims for sinkhole claims is they test it, and if there is, and in Central Florida, there's a lot of that, so they changed it to where you can buy that coverage separately. And typically that deductible is 10% of your dwelling coverage.
Okay.
So you got $400,000 dwelling coverage and you want to file a quote unquote sinkhole claim. $40K.
Yeah.
But the catastrophic ground cover collapse, it's a little bit harder to have that coverage kick in, but that coverage is at your all other peril deductible. So probably $1,000 or $2,500.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, but if your house gets swallowed, I assume that it won't be too hard for that to kick in.
No. Yeah. So it has to meet like 4 categories. Is there a visible depression? Was it like an abrupt collapse? And then it also has to be condemned. Like you can't live there.
Right. That's what I was going to ask about, since we're getting into the insurance part is, okay, so let's say that you do have settling. I'm calling it settling. I know that's a term that probably isn't appropriate, but let's say that the structure has moved from when it was built more than structures normally settle. And then you're saying, hey, I think it's because of a depression or a sinkhole or something. Why would any insurance company at that point, okay, we're going to give you money to repair it if you're under unstable ground in the first place? Why don't they just say, hey, if you think you got a sinkhole, I think we're going to write this one off and see you later.
Down, right?
Yeah. So why wouldn't that happen?
I'm sure that's,
it might
thank
happen.
God I've never had a
of
sinkhole
course,
claim.
thank God.
So I don't know how that process goes. And if you call the claims department and ask them anything like, hey, if this happened, would this be covered or what happens? And they go, sorry, every claim is a snowflake and it's unique and we can't tell you anything until you actually file the claim. So luckily I've never had that happen. I don't know how, what happens if that happened, but
yeah, let's hope we almost, and that gets us to what almost happened on the show in 2013, 11 years ago. About in 2013, 37-year-old Jeff Bush, who lived in Seffner, Florida, which is just outside of Tampa, was sleeping in his bed, and the ground opened up underneath his house and swallowed him, and he fell in so deep they never recovered his body. Isn't that horrible?
That's horrific.
It just can you imagine? I mean, it just unthinkable, right? You go to bed, and then next thing you know, you're swallowed up by the earth.
Yeah,
right?
It is unthinkable.
After that, they, obviously they condemned the property. And then I guess in 2015, it started opening up again. And now it just opened up again.
Okay.
But this time it's fenced off and there's no house there. So it's just and it's very normal. Like once a sinkhole starts going, it's not uncommon for it to grow a little bit over time, because the whole thing. And if people wonder what sinkhole is, Florida is built on a lot of limestone and other porous rock. So there's a lot of cavities underneath us. And they say that if the ground cover soil and clay gets too heavy, it can collapse the limestone ceiling of the caverns underneath us. And that's what a sinkhole is, basically.
Right.
It's just voids in our.
It's mostly in the center and western or upper part. We typically don't have them down here.
That's true. It's very uncommon for down here. It's more, I always say, kind of central Florida north is where you'll see them. So, and in the seller disclosure, there's a whole section, property seller disclosure, if you use the right one, as far as I'm concerned, if you're a listing agent, they ask you a whole section about sinkholes. Do you remember that, Johnny?
I do.
Yeah. So they ask, have you ever had a sinkhole? Do you believe you have a sinkhole? Have you ever filed a claim for a sinkhole? Have you ever won a claim for a sinkhole? It's all in there. Asking, and everybody looks at you like, what the heck's going on with these questions, right? And I'm like, look, it's very, I shouldn't say it's very common, but it's known to happen in Central Florida, and that's why they have
enough that they put it in.
Yeah,
there.
they put it in there.
There's a couple carriers that when you quote a home in that area, that will decline it and say, no, there's a sinkhole close by.
Ah, that's interesting.
It's too close to one that they are aware of.
It would be really cool to call the neighbors around that sinkhole and see what's happening with their insurance claims. Like if I was still a reporter, I'd be like checking it out and doing that. So, hey, you guys, you reporters listening, you should go out and do that story. Call the neighbors.
They're like,
find out what's going on.
I'm just going to copy and paste someone else's ideas.
Hey, I can do that. Can't I do that? Hey, I can handle it. Right. So, so that gets us to the 2013 story. So the sinkhole had just happened and poor Mr. Bush had died, right? And a couple weeks later, we get this call on the show, and it was sounded like a young to middle-aged woman. She had a really kind of country accent, is the way I would describe it. And it was so country that I thought it was a skit. I thought somebody was calling us and doing a bit or something, right? And
not cable show. Not then. No way.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, because back then bits were so popular on the station. Everybody used to call up with the quickies and all that. I always think about bringing the quickies to
when
this.
You said a couple of weeks later we got a call, I thought it was going to be Mr. Bush calling from. Hey, Jim.
Oh,
that's where I instantly went with this audience. I was like, oh, I don't remember that, but I can see where you're going.
No, so this lady had this country accent, and she said, so she goes, so do you know anything about, I'm not going to try to do the accent, but she goes, do you know anything about the sinkholes, And we had Matt Miles from My Safe Home Inspection there, and he's a GC, right? So I was like, well, yeah, we know a little bit about it. We have Matt here. And she goes, well, I think I have a sinkhole. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, right? And I'm going, oh yeah, why do you think you have a sinkhole? Right? And she goes, well, sometimes when I've been noticing that over time that my doors don't open and shut properly, and they're kind of like hitting the ground. And now my windows aren't open and closing right. And sometimes if it's real quiet in the house, you can hear the metal in the windows bending. And she goes, yeah, it happens mostly in my baby's room. Now she's telling me this whole thing without us talking. So she just keeps doing things and making my eyes get wider and wider. And then when she was done talking, and she goes, oh, and I can hear the metal creaking right now. So she takes her phone and I guess puts it near the window, and we can hear some weird noise. So I very calmly said, ma'am, I said, did you say that window's in your baby's room? And she's like, yeah. And I go, how old is the baby? It was in a crib, right? And I said, you got to take that baby out of that house right now and go outside, and we'll call you off air, right? So we did. We called her off air, and we got her to inspect her up there. She did have, her house was sinking, but it wasn't because of a sinkhole. What happened was the developers, when they built her house, now I don't know if she built it or somebody built it before her, but a lot of developers that aren't reputable, when they need to do fill for the pad of the house, they'll take construction debris and mix that in with the fill for the volume. But over time, the construction debris will settle and disappear or whatever. And that's what made her, and the developer did that in her house, and she got an insurance thing through the developer. The developer had to pay.
I lived in a a community where that happened, like where I parked my car. Like I'd be like, man, all of a sudden, over time my car would be tilted sideways and like would notify them, and that's what happened. They just were throwing the garbage in there, and slowly but surely.
Yep. That was very common in the acreage at a certain period of time. I think in the 80s and the 90s, I think that happened a lot out there, where they just threw whatever junk they could think of and put it into the pad for the house.
That's what I like about the South.
So that's our sinkhole story for today. So
when you're bringing that up, I kind of vaguely remember her call, but I wish you could find that audio.
I'm going to find it. And I'm doing all this based off my memory. So I might have added some stuff.
You contacted her off air and followed up with her. So that really set in for you. That
it was, all that part's true. I remember her saying that the metal creaking, and she said it was doing it right then.
Right.
And that's when I was like, has the baby? And she's like, the baby, what I remember is the baby was like right near the window.
Were we in the Wild studio? Or you were in the Wild studio, weren't we? Wild 95.5. Station.
I think we were.
I think we were.
Yeah. I think we were at that point.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, we weren't in Jennings.
Yeah,
we weren't in the Jennings. Well, actually, 2013, we might have just
moved.
Yep, I think we just moved.
Okay.
But anyway, let's go ahead and take a break on the flip side.
Can I ask Ross one more question on sinkhole since we're here? Because we were talking about it as far as coverage, right? Now, obviously, if the whole house goes in, but and you mentioned that. What about the driveway falls in, and it's not the house is okay, but the driveway or the front yard or something like that, and the sinkhole opens up? Is there any coverage that way, or do you have to have a total destruction of the house?
So for catastrophic ground cover collapse, one of the criteria is that the house has to be condemned by a local authority.
All right.
If you have the sinkhole coverage, like I said, it's pretty broad, and there was a lot of fraudulent things that were happening back then. So I would imagine that there is some level of coverage for that.
Okay, but that's a separate policy. Okay.
No, it's an endorsement.
Okay,
that's on the policy, just like adding mold or something. It's an endorsement on the policy, and it used to automatically come on every single policy, but now it doesn't. It's something that with most carriers you have to add. And then if you do want to add it, then most carriers will require you to pay for half of a geological survey, and they have that survey done. And then if it's approved, then you can have it.
Gotcha. Okay. Good to know.
That's interesting. Thank you, Jimmy. So on the flip side, we're going to get into a lot of insurance stuff. There's so much going on, a lot of good news too, which is really nice to hear. So we're going to get into insurance on the flip side.
Excellent. Sounds great. If you got questions, comments, concerns, you're more than welcome to be a part of the program. It's a quick 4-minute break and we're back at it. You can dial up now, 877-927-6969. Of course, if you are not comfortable on the radio, I totally understand. You have access to the entire team. Pros. These are experts in their field. We call it the one-stop real estate shop for a reason. You get them all at floridatalkrealestate.com. floridatalkrealestate.com. These are pros. You get them all. Remember, floridatalkrealestate.com. Know it, use it, love it, share it. Back in 4 minutes. Florida Talk Real Estate right here on Real Radio.
Got something to say?
I got something to say.
Text us at 47142. Start your message with Real Radio. Standard data and message rates apply, and don't text while driving. Here's what's happening with the weather on Real Radio.
From the Gordon & Partners Weather Center. Have you been injured in a motor vehicle accident? Call 561-333-3333 or go to fortheinjured.com.
I'm meteorologist Jennifer Collins with CBS 12 News. Warm today with afternoon highs in the lower 80s under a mix of sun and clouds. Breezy too with a southwest wind between 15 to 20 miles per hour. Mainly clear, mild tonight with lows in the upper 60s Sunday morning. The cold front arrives Sunday afternoon, ushering in much cooler air for the start of next week.
This report is sponsored by Discover. Did you know Discover wants everyone to feel special? That's why with your Discover card, you have access to 24/7 customer service, as well as $0 fraud liability, which means you're never held responsible for unauthorized purchases. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. Limitations apply.
Hey, it's your boy Johnny C here, host of Florida Talk Real Estate. They're tops when it comes to helping people buy and sell houses. But Florida Talk Real Estate is so much more than that. For 5 years, I've watched these guys help thousands of our listeners with any real estate need. They couldn't do it without their sponsors, who are experts in their fields. Check it out. Jim DePola, powered by Keller Williams Realty. Their team specializes in helping people sell their house for top dollar, and buyers get great deals on the purchase of their home. That's what they did for me and my family, and I couldn't be happier that I hired them for my real estate transaction. Mike Rao from the mortgage firm is one of our favorite guests on the show, and he is the mortgage guy. Whether you're looking for a refi or a mortgage to purchase a new home, Mike Rao will get you the answers you need. The mortgage firm is licensed to do loans in Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, and they have local offices that cover all of South Florida. So if you're thinking about a refi or a new mortgage, go to the mortgage guy, Mike Rao, and find out what he can do for you. The Mortgage Firm, Inc., NMLS 189233, Florida license MLD 78, equal housing lender. The law office of Paul A. Krasker has been specializing in real estate law for nearly 25 years and has the professional team you need. Upside down with your house, Paul's team can help you conduct short sales, loan modifications, even if you're behind on payments. They also help you with foreclosure defense and bankruptcy. They can even help you get a student loan modification and repair your credit to get the score you need. Paul's full-service team has helped thousands of our listeners, and they can help you too. Trident Title LLC is the largest privately owned title company in Florida. When you need a title company to complete a refi, home purchase, or sale, Trident Title has got you covered. Not only do they offer competitive pricing, Trident Title has attorneys on staff to make sure if you have bumps in the road declaring title that you can get the job done. Beware, not all title companies in Florida have attorneys on staff. Trident Title does and complies with all the new federal regulations released last year. Ross Komarinetz, owner of Brightway Insurance, has been helping our listeners get great rates on homeowners insurance plans. Haven't checked your homeowners insurance policy in a while? This is a great way to help reduce your monthly mortgage payment. Ross can also help with renters and auto insurance. Ross is only a phone call away and can usually get the answers you need same day.
Call Ross today at 561-425-6228 or drop by his office at 873 Donald Ross Road in Juno Beach.
So now you know why I'm happy to be part of the Florida Talk Real Estate Show, the longest running real estate show in Florida. And all these sponsors are just a phone call or a click away. Just call 888-973-7828. That's 888-973-7828. Or go to floridatalkrealestate.com. That's floridatalkrealestate.com. And don't forget to use the most accurate search engine to find your new home or ask for a free home valuation because floridatalkrealestate.com has you covered. That's floridatalkrealestate.com.
Real Radio 92.1. We are an iHeart radio station. This is Florida Talk Real Estate with Jim DePola and Johnny C. Got a question for the show? Call us live at 1-877-927-6969.
I'll say it again, 877-927-6969. If you got questions, comments, concerns in the world of real estate, you want to get involved with the conversation, don't hesitate a moment. Dial that up. Jimothy, our producer extraordinaire, he'll line you up, get you on the air. How are you, my dude?
Doing mighty fine. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning to you as well. Johnny C., that's me, your old buddy, your old pal. Ross Komarinetz with Brightway Insurance. Juno Beach is here with us on a Saturday. Good to see you, my friend.
You too. Good to see everybody.
Always a pleasure. And, of course, Jimmy D's here. That's Jim DePola, who runs the top producing Keller Williams team, Keller Williams Innovations, on the Florida Home Pros team. Jimmy D, how you be?
Hey, good. Hey, happy South Florida, everybody. We're going to get into insurance right now. So if you have any kind of homeowners insurance question, you got to give us a call now. We got Ross Komarinetz from Brightway Insurance from the Juno Beach office, the only office you care about when it comes to Brightway Insurance. When you're thinking insurance, you got to think Ross. He has a great staff over there, and they're so informative, and we give quotes all the time for people from this show. It's free. All you got to do is send me your address, and you say, I want a quote. Ross will give you the quote. Can you just tell us the process about that? The two quotes you give, just give a quick rundown on that.
So if I don't know what coverage you have now, I just send out two of our, we send out our kind of premier and our budget quote. Sometimes people have a combination of in between, but we just kind of send out two quotes that are kind of a jumping off point, and we can talk about it, customize it, increase, decrease, add, remove, whatever.
Excellent. There's a lot of things that are proposing changes to the insurance market. Okay, just to set the foundation, Florida is in an insurance crisis. We've been in an insurance crisis for a couple years at least now. We're paying between 2.5 to 3 times more than the average homeowners insurance policy across the country. It's really affecting affordability down here, being hit like the rest of the nation with high interest rates. And Florida also has higher prices in central United States or the Midwest. We didn't really see that. As the interest rates went higher, they all went through a little bit of a down cycle in their values out there. But we kept going, charging forward. So we're getting a triple whammy in Florida: high interest rates, high prices, high insurance.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we get the triple whammy because we're Florida. That's why we move here, because Florida's different. And sometimes different's good and sometimes different's not so good.
Only 1 out of 3 of those is kind of celebrated. And
The
that's
prices going
prices.
up, the higher prices. Yeah. So, what the Florida Congress did in order to change everything is they decided that through lots of research that it was too easy for public adjusters, attorneys, and homeowners to get together and gang up on the insurance industry and file what they consider specious lawsuits against the insurance companies. And there was this astronomical stat that was thrown around during this time. What was it, like 78%?
So Florida accounts for 8%, and this is back in like 2004.
Yeah, right.
Florida had accounted for 8% of all property damage claims filed in the United States. It's probably a pretty fair number, normal number based on population and hurricanes and whatever. Florida accounted for 80% of all property damage claims that resulted in a lawsuit in the United States.
So
then there was $15 billion associated with property damage claims that resulted in a lawsuit just in Florida. Out of that money, $15 billion, what percentage do you think went to pay the claims?
Oh, come on.
20%?
It's 8.
Wow.
8%
was like
paid the property damage claims.
That number should be like 80.
71% went to the plaintiff's attorneys.
Oh,
No,
lawyers.
92.
No, 71 went. Well, you got to. Then the insurance has to pay their attorneys.
Oh,
so the
I
other
see.
20% was their
attorneys.
they got to pay their
I
people to
see.
do the work.
Okay.
So
Yeah, so that's pretty crazy. So and then the reinsurance industry, which is really the big dogs, it isn't the insurance company, they're medium dogs, right? So the real big dogs are the people behind the scenes that own the reinsurance companies. What are those? I didn't even know about reinsurance until I became a reporter and covering city government at one point. It's like, what the heck's reinsurance? That's the companies that insure the insurance companies, right?
for major catastrophes.
For major catastrophes. So what happens, the reinsurance is like, this isn't working. You guys got to change your regulations or do something to control this, because we are not going to fund your companies that are in Florida for your policies if you don't change something around. So what they did is they enacted a bunch of regulations. This is about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years.
It was December of 22.
December of 22. So
December of 22 was kind of the major change in how you can sue the insurance company and who's responsible for paying the fees.
And the short version of that is, before, what happened is, if you were a homeowner, and I know this personally because I had to sue my insurance company, that we would hire an attorney and we didn't really have to pay anything. And the attorney went mano a mano with the insurance company and worked with our public adjuster and our contractor to try to get the insurance company.
If the attorney, whatever the private attorney wins, it's a fee multiplier too. So not just his fees, it's a multiplier of his fees.
Right. So what ended up happening, so it didn't cost the homeowner anything. They had no skin in the game in order to go after the insurance company.
And typically they didn't even know they were suing the insurance company. It was just a roofer came over and said, hey, you got damage. I can get you a free roof. Sign this paper.
That's true. There was a lot of people banging on doors and saying, hey, remember that hurricane that happened 5 years ago? You're
Not
almost
even a hurricane. Remember that
storm we had?
Oh, that storm.
Like 8 months ago?
Yeah.
That you have damage to your roof, but your car's okay?
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can get you a new roof.
Yeah, but your car's fine. Experience the same devastating hailstorm, but your car's okay. It's your roof. Gotcha.
Well, it's leaning in the driveway a little bit. So they made it so now the attorneys are paid by the homeowner, the plaintiff fees, if you will, or the attorney that you hire. Now you have to pay that attorney out of your costs.
Yeah, so it
The
used to
insurance
just be like a contingency. They get a portion of whatever proceeds they
No,
managed
they
to
got
win.
fee. They said, hey, we charge $150 an hour, and if they won, they got like $450 an hour.
Just like that. Now
From
you
the
actually have to
insurance
pay a
company.
retainer. You got to come out of pocket. There's upfront fees in order to get that litigation going.
And
And that's
the-
a different beast for a lot of
And
folks.
also, a lot of attorneys now won't take cases that they used to take because they know there's not as likely chance they're going to win. So they're like being more reasonable. So you can't just, it's kind of like back in the old days that you could walk into some place and just make up some crazy, wacky story and say, I'm going to sue you.
Sure.
And the attorneys under the old systems, like, let's roll the dice and see what happens.
See what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now, if they don't think they're going to win, they're going to walk away from,
Unless
your
it's
complaint.
I think it's a breach of contract, like a flat out breach of contract.
Mhm.
Then if you're suing them for that, then it works the original way.
Okay.
Why not? Sue everybody.
Sue everyone. and breach of contract feels like a legit case where you should be represented at every turn. I mean,
Right.
come on.
So it's been about a year, and what they were saying is when they changed the regulations, it's like, look, this isn't a light switch where it's just going to get better. It's going to take, and what they said was 18 months to 5 years before everything smooths out. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, 5 years of crisis is not a good day. But we might have some nice news over here. Okay. So the Sun Sentinel, we talked about this last week, Ross, real quick. The Sun Sentinel pulled up like the top, I'm guessing 20 or so Florida insurance, Florida property insurers in Florida, about the top 20 or so. And what they found, and the study is from 21 to 2023, 2021 to 2023. And what they found out is that between those 2 years, not an annualized, but the 2 years gross, they predict, based on previous lawsuits compared to today with the new regulation, 20% down. So that's pretty good, right? 1 in 5.
Yeah.
And we're only a year out, right? We're only a year out. And they were saying 18 months to 5 years to start seeing stuff. So maybe this is going to work. That's a really good thing. And then we had some other really good news. We had 2 property insurers that went to the Department of Insurance Regulation and said, hey, based on what our projection for claims going to be in the future, we think that our policy rates are too high and that they're asking to reduce their rates. And it's being reviewed right now in the state of Florida. So that's kind of interesting where some of the insurance companies are saying, hey, we're collecting too much.
Interesting.
Right. Then
that motivation on that's weird.
Well,
I mean,
go ahead about that, Russ, because I want to talk about that.
5 years ago, that wasn't abnormal. We'd see rate carriers file, hey, we're going to have an overall rate decrease in the state. Over the last 4 years, that seems crazy.
So it's all just a numbers game, right? It's a bean counter. They're like, oh, we got enough in the coffers, we're good. And they kind of it's all about risk, right? I mean, they have their patterns.
I mean, they're in business to make money. So if if their rates are too high, now they don't have any policies, and now they don't make any money. So everybody's got to be competitive. And
I was going to ask the same question that Johnny did because I didn't understand that concept. I'm like, I thought maybe that if they felt they were making too much profit because their profits are disclosed to the state regulators, that they're saying you're making too much money and you shouldn't be in the state anymore. I thought they were more worried about being kicked out, but that makes more sense. Competition.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
You can't be more expensive than your competitors.
There's no, defined like, oh, hey, when you file your rates for the year, you have to increase them by X amount of percent. They file it based on profitability and what they want their numbers to be. And if that results in a decrease, awesome. If it results in an increase, like we've seen, then, we got to deal with it.
Kind of like the OPEC stuff for oil. Right. If you think about it, you can't be charging too much for your stuff if everybody else is charging cheaper.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to adjust. Here's another good news in the insurance market. This came out from Money Magazine. 6 new property insurance companies enter Florida market. It will give homeowners a choice now on shopping for coverage. So that's really nice that we see insurance company coming in. For the last couple of years, we had the most insurance companies flee Florida went out of business
We had
completely.
7 go out of business.
7 went out of business. So we got 6 new ones coming in. So we're almost even, Steven. Right. So that's another good thing. Do you really think we're at the point where you can shop your insurance rate?
Really depends on how old your roof is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's still the kicker right now. We're starting to see the carriers loosen that a little bit and expand, like, hey, we'll give a little bit more life here on this type of roof, a little bit more on this type of roof. But really, if your roof is probably older than 10 years old, I mean, Citizens most likely is going to be the best bet, just because of the whole roof situation. If a carrier's expanded their guidelines and said, hey, we'll accept, this a little bit older roof, but we've been burned a lot on that, so we'll charge for it.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the time, Citizens
so
doesn't care
Citizens
about
are affordable.
how old your roof is.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it has 5 years of life left. So a lot of times, Citizens still the best, the most competitive premium at that point.
Now, I'm going to be honest about this. I'm going to bring it up, but I don't want to stay too much on it because I don't know enough about it. I read an article.
Can I just, I want to piggyback on what he just said right there, because you're talking about competition. So lowering premium is a great way to stay competitive, but also opening up your useful life on roofs is a great way to be uber competitive, as you're just noting, right?
Yeah.
So that 5 years of useful life was always such a just token phrase forever on the show that I heard you talking about. It seemed like a magic number. Why did that get wiped away so quickly?
So that it's not wiped away because a lot of the times, even though they'll accept that older roof, the carrier is going to still want proof that there's life left.
So it'll take
Most
the
of the
12-year-old roof, but it has to still have 5 years useful life.
Correct. Like
or
there's
20-year-old roof.
There's one carrier right now that just kind of is re-entering the market after pausing for quite some time, and they're a huge carrier.
And they just paused. They just said, we just want to see how the dust settles a little bit.
Correct.
Yeah. All right.
Correct. Yeah. So for the last few years, they paused and said, we're not really writing any business.
No new business. They kept
right.
Okay.
Exactly. They didn't really, I didn't have any non-renewals from them, or they didn't cancel anybody. And even as those policies renewed, they were still the most competitive. So they didn't really go crazy because they just said, hey, we're just hanging back here. They're right now on a lot of their quotes, if it's an older home not an older home, I'm talking 06, an 06 with an original roof.
Right.
You get to the end and it gives you the premium and it says, hey, we're going to require roof certification it's actually either from My Safe Home Inspection or from Don Myler. And you need to submit that to us before we'll accept it.
Mm-hmm.
So they've expanded it, but they still want to make sure that the roof is in good shape.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So we're starting to see that a little bit. And you talk about rate decreases. I mentioned it probably a few months ago that, hey man, I started to see a couple of my renewals come down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Instead of an increase, it went down.
And you were happy that you had choice with a couple of people. You actually had a choice. You could use this one or this one. It's like which you haven't had in a long time.
Yeah. I mean, we're starting to see some, carriers, if the home's 40 years or less, a little bit more choice in that area. Once it gets over 40, then it's kind of Citizens,
Yep. Now, to shore up the state of Florida responsibility, because they have a lot of responsibility for insurance. Not only do they have
the math in my head, I'm like, man, over 40. Like, I'm just trying to think of the percentage of homes in just Palm Beach County that are probably over 40.
Oh, yeah.
Such a mass.
Yeah.
The majority. And they're only getting older every year. Huh.
Yeah.
That's
but I mean, I think you'll start to see, as things keep, the carriers get more data on, claims filed and what's going on in lawsuits and all that. I think you'll start to see them open up again and become, like I said, they're in business. I mean, despite me telling everybody over the last 4 years that the Florida homeowners industry is the only industry on the planet that does not want new customers and is actively trying to get rid of the ones they have, we're starting to see that turn around where they're like, hey, we want to get a little bit more, but we want to make sure it's good. We're not just going to go, okay, we'll take everything. They want to make sure that as they enter it, that they are managing their risk and, be able to keep doing what they do.
So because
877-927-6969. If you'd like to be a part of the program, questions, comments, concerns, get involved in what we're talking about, dial it up. 877-927-6969. My apologies, Jimmy D.
No apologies at all. Thank you, Johnny. One of the things I read in the paper from Yahoo was Florida to borrow billions to backstop insurance after hurricanes. And I wasn't sure what this was about. And to me, it's a little scary because I've been asking Ross for years and years, if a big one hits, can Florida take it? Right? Like all their responsibilities, state of Florida.
Here comes the big one. Come for you, Elizabeth.
Yep, here comes the big one. Yep.
It's the big one.
I just watched Desmond, whatever, the son on that show. I just watched an interview with him behind the scenes on that show.
Oh,
it's
yeah?
pretty wild. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Oh.
So I wanted to read this to try to understand what's going on, because I'm always interested to make sure that the state has enough money if the big one hits and they need to start coughing up money. We don't go into that kind of crisis. Well, apparently in 2020 when the hurricane hit, was that Irma or Irving? I can't remember.
But Irma wasn't Irma 17?
Yeah, Irma was 17. It might have been Irving or something.
Ian,
thank you.
Irving.
Thank you. When Ian hit. Apparently the state of Florida needed to spend almost $2 billion to deal with insurance companies that were going out of business because of the claims. So what they're doing is they're refilling those coffers again by moving around some money. I don't want to get into all of it, but they're selling off some municipal bonds and stuff to grab some more money so they have a nice full coffer in case a big one hits. I just hope there's going to be enough there. I always get really, really worried about that because that's our safety net. And if that goes away, then people are going to be in
They should put a lot of it on the Ravens this weekend. They get a free no risk bet.
Yeah, the only problem is I'm sure the odds aren't very good if you win. Yeah. So
didn't you say what about 2 months ago that somebody in the federal government was investigating Florida to see if some of those emergency funds were there?
Oh yes, that's right. They were going through
is
that.
Is this the result of that possibly?
That might be. It might be behind the scenes. It's like, we're being overlooked. We better get our stuff straightened out, which is okay with me.
Who cares? As long as it gets done, yeah.
Which kind of is what's happening with the condos, that are above. What is it, Ross? Is it above 2 stories or 3 stories where you have to do the building check, the Sunny?
I don't deal in any of that.
Oh, that's right, because it's the building insurance.
Individual units. I would guess it's probably above 4.
Yeah, I think it's 4 because that's
there's
residential.
Different types of. There's like a type 1 condo, type 2, and type 3, or I think type 2 is 4 and above.
So we're seeing a lot of the condo associations and homeowners associations going through this, where the insurance companies are now going to them directly and saying, for the insurance for the whole community, if your buildings are too old, if we don't think that you've been checking them for structural integrity enough, if you don't have the proper hurricane protection or whatever, we're going to go in there and we might dump you, or we're going to be charging really high insurance rates. And we're seeing a lot of condos owners being slammed with increases that are not related to the board, but being forced upon the board because of the increased costs. Now, that being said, a lot of these communities, it's terrible that people are going through this, but a lot of these buildings, in my opinion, because I walk in a lot of buildings over the years,
Sure.
They don't take care of them. They're not keeping up with the deferred maintenance the way they should be.
Kick the can, baby.
They were kicking the can down the road. And this makes a lot of sense because when you're a condo board, condo commando, I call them condo commandos, right? When you're on the board, do you really want your neighbors coming to you and going, you're increasing the condo fee every month? People, it ends up driving people crazy. So a lot of these people were trying to do anything they can to just kick the can down the road to save money, but it's going to end up costing them a lot now, and the time's coming.
Sure is.
Well, a lot of those buildings were way underinsured too.
Thank you.
And the carrier started coming out and saying, hey, that's not a $400,000 replacement cost for that building. It's $2 million.
Right.
And so that's a huge, so now it's got to be insured correctly. So that becomes a huge increase for them as well.
And I really don't have problems, even though it's just going to be very painful. We're going through this. If we don't go through it, it'll just be really bad if we have a catastrophe. And that's why I'm glad, regardless of whether the feds were overlooking the state and the state reacted to that or the state did it on their own, at least it's being done. I'm not saying it's the perfect fix. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but at least
I
they're
think
doing
it's
something
just,
about it.
Hey, we need to refill this. And, this is how we do it,
Mhm.
and so that we make sure that we do have this money here just in case. And it just seemed kind of routine. I don't know, the article when I read it just seemed
Yeah,
kinda,
it
just
did.
seemed
It was
kinda
pro
routine.
forma.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason why I'm bringing it up is to let the public know that the state behind the scenes is doing stuff to shore up the coffers. It might be a good thing. It might be an ominous thing. We don't know yet, but at least they're working on it behind the scenes, and at least they're putting money in and not taking money out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
To the tunes of billions too, which is,
Yeah.
it's not like just chump change.
Let's go ahead and take a break. We're going to do one more thing on insurance, Ross, after the break. And what we're going to talk about is the state legislator. It's actually a bipartisan bill where they're trying to figure out a new way to insure with the state of Florida for houses to see if that will solve our insurance crisis. And right at that segment, also, Johnny, we're going to get to 1994.
Sweet.
We're going to talk about what it was like in 1994. You're going to be really surprised when I see these numbers. I'm having jaw drop.
Huh. Well,
Yeah.
I'm very interested. And of course, if you're interested in being a part of the program, you're always welcome to dial up toll free 877-927-6969. If you are not interested in that, but you are interested in being involved with this team of pros, you want access to an entire team of pros. We call it the one-stop real estate shop for a reason. You get them all at floridatalkrealestate.com. That's floridatalkrealestate.com. Know it, use it, love it, share it. Do that. Share. You never know when somebody in your world needs a pros pro. Maybe they're buying a home, selling a home, they're stuck with a home, they don't know what to do. They just haven't shared that with you. You could share it with them and change their life. floridatalkrealestate.com. We're back in 4 minutes. Florida Talk Real Estate right here on Real Radio.
What's a Real Radio podcast? It's Real Radio on demand. Find your favorite show at realradio921.com.
Hey, it's your boy Johnny C here, host of Florida Talk Real Estate. They're tops when it comes to helping people buy and sell houses. But Florida Talk Real Estate is so much more than that. For 5 years, I've watched these guys help thousands of our listeners with any real estate need. They couldn't do it without their sponsors, who are experts in their fields. Check it out. Jim DePola, powered by Keller Williams Realty. Their team specializes in helping people sell their house for top dollar, and buyers get great deals on the purchase of their home. That's what they did for me and my family, and I couldn't be happier that I hired them for my real estate transaction. Mike Rao from the mortgage firm is one of our favorite guests on the show, and he is the mortgage guy. Whether you're looking for a refi or a mortgage to purchase a new home, Mike Rao will get you the answers you need. The mortgage firm is licensed to do loans in Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, and they have local offices that cover all of South Florida. So if you're thinking about a refi or a new mortgage, go to the mortgage guy, Mike Rao, and find out what he can do for you. The Mortgage Firm, Inc., NMLS 189233, Florida license MLD 78, equal housing lender. The law office of Paul A. Krasker has been specializing in real estate law for nearly 25 years and has the professional team you need. Upside down with your house, Paul's team can help you conduct short sales, loan modifications, even if you're behind on payments. They also help you with foreclosure defense and bankruptcy. They can even help you get a student loan modification and repair your credit to get the score you need. Paul's full service team has helped thousands of our listeners, and they can help you too. Trident Title LLC is the largest privately owned title company in Florida. When you need a title company to complete a refi, home purchase, or sale, Trident Title has got you covered. Not only do they offer competitive pricing, Trident Title has attorneys on staff to make sure if you have bumps in the road declaring title that you can get the job done. Beware, not all title companies in Florida have attorneys on staff. Trident Title does and complies with all the new federal regulations released last year. Ross Komarinetz, owner of Brightway Insurance, has been helping our listeners get great rates on homeowners insurance plans. Haven't checked your homeowners insurance policy in a while? This is a great way to help reduce your monthly mortgage payment. Ross can also help with renters and auto insurance. Ross is only a phone call away and can usually get the answers you need same day.
Call Ross today at 561-425-6228 or drop by his office at 873 Donald Ross Road in Juno Beach.
So now you know why I'm happy to be part of the Florida Talk Real Estate Show, the longest running real estate show in Florida. And all these sponsors are just a phone call or a click away. Just call 888-973-7828. That's 888-973-7828. Or go to floridatalkrealestate.com. That's floridatalkrealestate.com. And don't forget to use the most accurate search engine to find your new home or ask for a free home valuation because floridatalkrealestate.com has you covered. That's floridatalkrealestate.com.
The Anajar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios.
Have you been in an accident? Call Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys at 1-800-747-FREE.
That's 1-800-747-3733.
Real Radio 92.1 is WZZR West Palm Beach, an iHeartRadio station.
Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts. Free never sounded so good. This is Florida Talk Real Estate with Jim DePola and Johnny C. Got a question for the show? Call us live at 1-877-927-6969.
877-927-6969. That is the toll-free number into the studio. If you want to be a part of the program, we got a little less than another hour for you. It's 2 hours of infotainment we offer every Saturday. Thanks for being with us. Maybe you're live streaming today. Thanks for being with us. Facebook, YouTube. Appreciate you. Timothy's our producer extraordinaire. What's up, my dude?
Hello, and good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. This time last week, I was just driving home from a night of
debauchery.
Yes, with Tool, and it was amazing. But yeah, right now I was like just pulling. I was in the car heading home.
I heard that was a good show. I had some family in town that went to that.
Wasn't merely a Tool show. It was a transcendent journey, a rebirth.
I believe they were there with you.
Yes. It's beautiful.
So cool. Great band.
It was beautiful.
Mm-hmm. You set up with Rockville yet?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. We buy Rockville before they even announced the lineup.
Nice. Nice.
Oh, yes. But what a difference a week makes. It's great to be with you guys on this Saturday. Johnny C., that's me. Ross Komarinetz is here. Brightway Insurance, Juno Beach. What's up, my dude?
You know, that's right.
And Jimmy D's here, too. That's our fearless leader. 12 plus years now, I've told you, he runs a top producing Keller Williams team. Keller Williams Innovations. You find the Florida Home Pros team. And my guy, Jimmy D. Jim, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Johnny. So now what you just told me about the story coming back, that means I was bugging you when you were exhausted on the way back because I'm like, where are you, Johnny? And then I realized, like, 15 minutes in the show, Johnny told me 2 weeks ago he's not going to be here today.
My phone was sitting on my counter.
Oh, thank God. Good.
Take my phone.
I was texting him.
I don't need my phone anywhere, especially at a Tool show.
Yeah. Well, that was good. I'm glad I didn't bug you and you enjoyed it.
Brought your beeper.
Yes,
beeper.
And it was so bad. Ross came in last week, and I didn't think we had enough chairs because we had this special guest, Stan DeMott.
Oh,
right?
nice.
Yeah, which I'm going to talk about in a second when we get into the market. But and then Ross was in. He kind of drug in. He was a little tired, but he made it. He played hurt, and I was like, I don't know if we have enough chairs. And then he left, and I felt bad about that. I felt terrible.
No, I was exhausted. I went home and slept for 2 hours.
Well, I'm glad. And then I realized Johnny isn't coming. I'm like, we had the seat. Why did I let him go? So sorry about that. Yeah, we had, let's get into insurance first. We're going to continue with our insurance. If you have any insurance questions on air or off air, all you got to do is reach out to us, 888-973-7828. You can go to our Florida Talk Real Estate page, but you cannot email us right now. I don't want to get into it.
Don't do it.
Just go to our if you need to get in touch with us, go to our website or call the 888 number. And fill out a contact management form, but don't use their email. We're having a big problem with their email right now. It's very bad. But
of course, you can always go on Facebook as well. It's another access to the entire team. Facebook, Florida Talk Real Estate on Facebook.
Yes. Let me see. First of all, I wanted to say about Mike. Sorry, Mike isn't here today. He's a little under the weather. Hopefully, he'll be back next week. Mike, wishing you the best. I don't think it's anything too serious. Just got a cold.
Yeah.
Also, wanted to wish a happy birthday to Nancy, our office manager.
Oh,
Big
Yep.
Toe's
all
birthday.
right.
Big Toe, Sergeant Holka's birthday.
You
Happy
just had a
birthday.
birthday too. I didn't realize you guys were so
I
close.
just recently had a birthday too. So happy birthday, Nancy. Thank you for being in my life for so long. And I don't know hardly anybody that doesn't like Nancy that works with Nancy. She is really important to our team.
So I'll
And
tell you, I like my dog, right? If my dog doesn't like you, I got a couple people in my life too that have dogs the same way. If the dog like barks, we're like, you got to leave. Like, you're just not welcome here. I might lean towards you. The dog doesn't like you, got to go. If you don't like Nancy, I don't know if you fit.
Yeah, there's something wrong with you.
I don't know.
and she's so good at her job. So
That's an understatement.
Yeah.
if I may say so. She is so wonderful to deal with.
She really is. And one last shout out, David Stein, who's one of our newest members on our team. He just recently closed one deal. He has another deal coming up that he's closing. He's doing great. And thank you so much for being part of our team. And it's growing every week. The last thing I want to just say about this, we are looking for a new full-time position at the Florida Home Pros / Florida Talk Real Estate company that I own. We're looking for a customer care rep. Well, we're looking for somebody, as Dan DeMott, who was on last week, my coach, he said, what we're looking for in this position is somebody that says, why do I want to text somebody when I could pick up the phone and call them? So we're looking for a person that's looking to have great interactions with people. A lot of the audience knows that we call them a few times a year just to touch base to see if they have any kind of real estate needs. We're not trying to sell them anything. We're just asking, hey, do you got any real estate questions we can help you with?
That's right.
Every week we help people. Last week, I think we had Glenda and Sandy and Lee and several other people I can't even remember right now that called up and just wanted a home valuation just to find out what their home was worth. They're not trying to sell their house right now. We're not banging them, driving them crazy to sell their house. But we do a real home valuation compared to other people. What we do is I actually go into the system myself, look at the property appraiser to see what your property's like, go into your neighborhood, do a comp. Not only do I send you the comp, but I give you a video that I created analyzing the comp so that you understand what you're reading and understand how I'm evaluating your property. You can't get that anywhere else. And I'm not joking about that. Here in South Florida, I don't know anybody else that does it that way. What everybody does, and this is the dirty little secret, they buy a widget for $5 a month and they put it on their website for a free home valuation. And it's all set up. Hey, Johnny, do you want a free home evaluation? Give us your phone number, your email, and your address. And then magically, within seconds, you get the report.
Oof.
Isn't that amazing? 24/7. Magically, it just comes in. That agent must be magic person to do that so fast.
They're wizards. Yeah.
Yep. And the thing is, it's as good as, might as well go to the other website portals that are not very accurate at all. And you don't get the analysis either. All you get is a bunch of numbers. Here's all the houses sold in your neighborhood. It doesn't mean anything, without the analysis of how your house would sell and how it would compete in that market. So if you're looking for a real home valuation, just go to floridatalkrealestate.com and say, I want to find out what my house is worth, put it in the address.
It's that simple.
It's that simple.
It really is.
A lot of them sent me feedback this week saying, thank you for all the information. One of the people, wow, they bought their house in the high fives 18 months ago, roughly. The house is more than doubled in value in 18 months.
Wow.
He got a great deal.
Crazy.
Now,
High
he put
fives. So
he-
it's close to $1 million?
it's over $1 million
Over $1 million.
now.
Holy
Yeah.
smokes.
Yeah. Now, he bought a compound. It had an outbuilding. It had a mother-in-law suite that was connected to the house, but it was like its own separate thing. Has an awesome pool. It had solar panel system that wasn't that great, but he had all these features on this compound. Extra large driveway, right? So the reason why it was so good is that it needed fixing up. So Lee wasn't afraid of going in there. He's not a GC, but he's in the contracting business. So he wasn't afraid of anything. And he went in there.
He knows enough to
Yeah.
get her done.
And he spent some money. I think when he told me what it cost for his roof, it started with a 5. And that was pretty scary to me. I was like, holy moly, it was almost 10% of what he paid for the house. But since he's done all this work to it, when I did the comp form, I was like so happy. I was just gleaming when I was putting the stuff together. It's like, wow, this property could be worth a lot of money today.
Nice.
So everybody that called, a lot of people bought one person bought in 2017. They paid $375. The unit's worth easily $600 right now, and they paid 2017, right?
Great.
And it could be as high as $650, $670, but so all these people that were saying, I don't want to pay anything because the prices were too high or the interest rates, I'm waiting for the interest rates to go down when they were at 5, right? And they were waiting for the interest rates to go down to buy.
I talked with those people.
Yeah. You're not really, you're not beating the market. You're outsmarting yourself than outsmarting the market. I'm not saying that everybody should buy, but if you really want to buy and those are your excuses and you can buy, you're cheating yourself right now. You need to sit down with somebody and look at over all the numbers, including your rental situation, right? To try to figure out what's best for you. So if you need a free consultation, give us a call on that. Now, getting back to the insurance though, I'm sorry, I'm switching over insurance for Ross. There's a legislator that got hit over in the Tampa area by the hurricanes, and he had a big problem getting his house fixed, and he felt like he got undervalued what he should have got from the insurance companies, and it took him an extra long time because the checks didn't come very fast. He got fed up. His attitude was there has to be a better way. So his suggestion, he put a bill together with a Democrat. The guy was a Republican. The other person was Democrat. So it's bipartisan. But there's 2 people that are pushing a bill right now in the House of the state asking for the state to take over all windstorm coverage and that you get all your other coverage from the private companies. And he feels that will greatly reduce our insurance premiums for people. What do you think about that?
I'm here from the government. I'm here to help.
That's what I was worried about. That's the first thing I'm worried about. But let me play devil's advocate with that, Ross. We do have citizens. So government's already here. So would it be that bad to bifurcate the windstorm or separate the windstorm from the regular insurance, if you will?
I mean, it kind of is that way now.
You kind of feel
we do that now. A lot of the times we write a citizen's wind only policy.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. And then, a hazard policy that excludes wind with another carrier.
So let me ask you, I haven't really heard about that much. So tell me why you would do that and why it's happening now, like why people would do that in today's market. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just trying to learn.
So just sometimes it's more competitive to split it up that way. So we check it, if it's typically will make more sense on an older home to split it up that way. So sometimes let's just for round numbers, a citizen's full policy, like you write the whole thing with citizens is, $10,000 we'll call it, because it's usually we're doing this on a coastal property that's hard to insure in general. So let's call it a citizen's full policy is $10,000. Now we might be able to split it up into a policy that excludes wind with another carrier and just pair it up with the citizen's wind, and it might be $8,000. So that, we check it to see
cool.
what the best way to do it is. And sometimes it's the best way to do it is to split it up.
Learn something every day, right, Johnny?
Right.
I didn't even know that you guys take that extra effort to go ahead and check that out. That's awesome.
Yeah. So most properties that are in the wind pool, where that's the only time citizens wind is available, it has to be in a certain location. Like if you're in Orlando, you can't just buy a citizens wind policy. It has to be in certain locations. So if it's there, we check it to see, would it make sense to split it up?
Well, I like that plan better than the bill, because the bill means it would be blanket everybody, or everybody could do it that way if they wanted to. And this is, at least it's specific to the windstorm areas and not everybody. So like under his bill, people in Orlando probably could do it, right? Just go to citizens for the windstorm.
But everybody talks about how citizens is underfunded now. So now
I
we're
know
gonna,
that.
now we're going to make a new company. Okay, what are those rates?
Yeah.
Are those rates now going to be higher because they're actuarially sound?
I totally
You
get
know?
it. I totally
don't
get
know.
it. I'm
I
not
don't
a
know.
big fan of putting it into the hands of the government in the long run because they're not business people.
No.
They're really not.
No.
Most of
They
the
can't get
the
fired.
politicians are not business people. They're like attorney. Like what is it? Like 85% of the people that are in Congress are attorneys.
Well, even the
Right.
quote unquote fiscally conservative are proven to be completely reckless with fiscal responsibility.
Fiscal conservative and politician. I'm not talking about either side. Fiscal conservative and politician doesn't exist.
No,
They
not
say
anymore.
it does, but
Not
it
anymore.
isn't. It's just
maybe
smoke and
5 of
mirrors.
them.
If you
Right.
give
If that
maybe there's an option but I mean, if you give no competition to the government, to one, regardless of what it is, one entity,
Yeah, you're right.
doesn't matter if it's government or private, one entity that does not have any competition, things just don't get done.
And they're not making a profit. So you have nobody sitting there going, hey, I want to make money off of this enterprise. Are we good financially? Do you really think that's going to happen with the state? I don't think they're going to be as concerned about the bottom line as a private company. So we'll see what happens. I just thought it was interesting that it was thrown out there. I just wanted to wrap up with that. Now, I really want to get into this because I thought it was a little bit of fun.
877-927-6969. You're always welcome to join the program. Got about 40 minutes remaining on a Saturday.
The National Association of Realtors, which might not exist much longer, right? They're in a lot of trouble right now, and they're already trying to come up with a new National Association of Realtors. But they did what was called a flashback, where they compared 1995 housing market down here in South Florida compared to the I'm sorry, this is nationwide. I'm sorry, it wasn't South Florida, but still, it's pretty interesting. 1995 housing market compared to today. And I just thought that was kind of interesting. So 30 years ago, basically.
Sure.
Right? So this is the one thing that's very disappointing. In 1995, we had 3.85 million homes sold in 1995, right? We had a population of 266 million.
That's about 100 million less.
Yeah, almost, right?
Yeah.
So last year, we only had 4.09 million units sold, and we have 336 million people now. So about 75 million more, right? So even though we have 75 more million people, we only sold 200,000 extra homes. This was our lowest sales. We're down about 25% to 30% compared to the last 5 years for amount of sales. So last year was considered one of the worst sales market as far as number of homes sold being transferred.
And again, this is a national stat, right?
National stat, but Florida's down about 25-30% in sales too. That's reflected.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
Now, single family inventory. This is kind of interesting. How many homes did we have in December of 1995 that were available for sale on the MLS nationwide? It was 1.58 million homes for sale active in December 1995. December 2023, nationwide, 870,000 homes. Half. We have half the inventory we did in 1995. That's kind of interesting. Now, months of supply nationwide in 1995, those 1.58 million homes, it would take about 4.8 months to sell them all if no other houses came on the market based on the current sales back in December 1995. In December 2023, to sell all those only 870,000 homes, it will take 3.1 months to sell 870,000. So our sales are slower and our inventory is lower. That's kind of interesting. And then finally, the average home, the median sales price in December or 1995 for the year, the median sales price was $114,000. Nationwide in 2023, that was basically 390, right? But if you adjust for inflation for the 1995 market, the home and today's value would be really 227. So we're at if you take out adjusted for inflation, or if you include inflation, it's 227 versus 390. So that's where we are from 1995. I thought that was kind of interesting.
It is. What was the interest rates?
Oh, that's a good question, and I can pull it up right now. Good question.
It's
Let's say 9.
Oh, let's guess. 1995. Let's go ahead and
9.
guess.
Yeah, 9. I was thinking like 8. Yeah, 8, 9. Yeah.
Let's see. 1995. Okay, we were, okay. So in 1995, the highest point we got to, no, we were in the 7s. We were in like the
7, okay.
about between 7.5 and 7.9. That's where we were back then. A whole point higher than where we are now, which gets us to our mortgage rates now. For the first time in like 13 or 14 weeks, we went up, quote, significantly. We went up 0.09. So we went almost 1/10 of a point. Still not crazy bad, but that's the highest increase we've had in 13 weeks. We had a 0.01 and a 0.06 at one point. So we're at now 6.69 for the Freddie Mac rate. Okay. That's the first time we've had any kind of like decent increase. You're still talking a couple bucks difference on your mortgage payment. It wouldn't, it's very negligible.
Right. The Fed is holding though.
We'll find out. Isn't it next week is when they're coming? I think next week the Fed is going to come. Everybody's conventional wisdom, Jimmy, on the Fed is going to be they're going to do nothing this week. Johnny, we know that we had that really good inflation. Well, at least what everybody's interpreting as a really good inflation report.
From fourth quarter?
Yeah.
Oh, GDP was phenomenal. Inflation is, according to their numbers, doing what they wanted to do. The reports from fourth quarter, like there should be fireworks in the sky. Is this?
Every time that somebody tells me the economy sucks, because you're never going to have everything perfect. All the cycles with all the different presidents, they all had their issues, right? When we were running through all this stuff. So what I don't get in today's market is, because I've been in bad markets. Don't people remember when we had the crash in 03 through 05 through 09?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a bad market, right? For people to say today's market's bad, I hate to say this, I don't get it, and I'm very open-minded because people feel the way they feel, right? But I still don't get it. So now I'm starting to ask people if they complain about the economy. Well, what would a good economy look like? What would it look like? GDP at 3% isn't good.
Want my eggs to go
5
down.
years ago, we were begging for 3% GDP because we were flat for so long.
Right.
Right. I'm sorry, Ross.
I want my eggs to go down.
Yeah.
That's
of
the
my
thing,
eggs.
right?
Milk, gas.
Maybe a
but,
raise.
But people were even 3 months ago when I would talk to people about the economy, you see it on TV, they complain about gas. Gas is, I've seen it's gone up like a 25-30% the last couple of weeks.
It's been super volatile. It always
It
bounces.
has
like
been, but
25 cents.
$3.25 for gas. Like, where do you think we're in 2023? Where do you think gas should be? $3.25 to me doesn't sound like a crazy rate. I
still remember when it was only 2 digits. There was a decimal point,
right?
I remember
87
growing
cents a
When
gallon.
you're siphoning through the change, you're like, I want to get a couple gallons of gas.
Yeah. Actually, I do remember that when my parents drove across country several times back in the 70s, gas was way under $1.
You want to talk about the
early 70s,
the mid 90s?
Yeah.
I remember those days. I was in the fuel oil business when I lived in New Jersey. So, I mean, I knew what it cost for, diesel and gas and things like that. And, Ross is right. I mean, it was, when you got over $1, I mean, that was big.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh my
God.
God.
That's crazy. I was a kiddo driving in the Bay Area, California, and still like $1.20, still change getting her done.
You'd hear about, wow, California, they pay that much. Wow.
I want to get back
Still
to that.
does.
Jimmy was in the oil business in Jersey. I didn't know he was a made man.
He doesn't talk about that.
I didn't know you were a made man. Jersey oil, you got to be in there.
Not that kind of oil.
That's not his real name. Jim, that his name is not his real name.
Yeah, that dude.
And he did not look like that 30 years ago. He was taller. He was 2 feet taller.
It's Jimmy L. The L is lamb on the lamb.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Nice.
So
we don't show his face on.
This got outed. and somehow I just got outed.
Sorry, dump that.
So I would like to, if anybody wants to call and tell me what they think a good economy looks like, I'm more than happy to listen to them. Right? I'm not going to argue with them because it's all about perception.
So
But
it is, and the perception and the reality are two different things. So perception of what you're perceiving, you see, you're like, I just can't be good, because most realities for most folks is their credit cards are about maxed. They're doing 20-something% interest. Like they're making their min payment and it's moving nothing, because their min payment went to like $600, $700, $800 a month, and it's like all interest now, right? It happened like overnight. So their reality is like things aren't good, based on a couple of small little nuanced things, like, I don't know, interest rates.
But you
Right?
know, the interest rates have been dropping.
I'm just talking
So-
about their day-to-day
totally.
reality, right?
So the credit card payments should be easing off a little bit over time,
But
right?
they should. You're right.
Now, they increased, right? They got
Overnight.
squeezed, right? Because
Yep.
the interest rates went up, but it's going to start easing off a little bit.
I read somewhere where that new credit card applications have
Crazy.
been up
Yes.
a lot.
Well,
So
you know what? And it's if you pay attention to your advertisements, 'cause your phone. I don't do
Oh,
Facebook or
yeah,
anything,
yeah.
but I'm sure they throw plenty at you too.
Mhm.
So many now are. This is the card for balance transfer.
Yeah.
0%
Kick the
through
can.
2025.
Kick the
Like,
can,
Yeah.
it went away for, I don't know, a good
while,
year,
yeah.
maybe 2 years. And now it's everyone best card for balance transfer. Woo,
Yeah.
woo, woo.
I seen it too.
besides
I was like,
unemployment,
oh man, here we go.
Yeah. besides
They know.
Musical credit cards.
They know it.
besides unemployment, which I think is going to be the key key indicator of any change in the real estate market significantly, is going to be the unemployment. Is going to be one of the first signs. But another sign is going to be when the mortgage companies, if they ever do this, they start coming up with if they start saying, hey, take your equity to go pay off your credit cards or go on vacation or buy a car, like they did with Country Ride when Angelo Mazzillo was alive. And
I
they
get
went
an
through all that
email
crazy.
every day from my mortgage holder that says refinance.
Right.
Every single day. Review your new loan up. Every day I get an email from them.
You know what? Another one I'm starting to see a lot of is home equity might be your best answer to tap into money.
Yeah.
And it's like,
And there is a lot of, we have more
those
equity.
HELOCs are rough though, because
Oh yeah.
man, if you mismanage that, you got a big
Yeah, you
bubble.
have to, the problem with the HELOCs is if the market changes, because a lot of people had HELOCs back in
That's home equity line
home
of
equity
credit,
line of credit,
right?
which is almost like a revolving credit card based on your equity or house.
Right.
And you only, like, they might give you a $50,000 limit on the line of credit. If you don't use any, you don't pay anything. If you use it, then you pay on what you use. But if you pay it back, you go back to zero. So it's kind of like a credit card
Right.
on your house.
Sort of.
But you have to make sure that you're not overextending it. So if the market changes and you lose 10% equity for a couple of years, that you're not upside down in case you need to sell or something like that. But one of the things that is true about this market, even though it always makes me uncomfortable when people are really grabbing money out of their house, to pay for other things than related to the house, is that we have more equity ownership than I think in any time in the history of the United States as far as the amount of equity people have. I think they said something like 40% of the people own their house outright.
Well, I hate to know that people are stripping equity, but it's there. You've earned it, right? It's part of being a homeowner, is that little bit of protection. And if you can access it, right? There's a cost to access it. If you can access it and it makes sense, that's a wonderful thing to lean on if you need it.
It's a tool in your toolbox.
It
If you
is.
have
Yeah.
it's important to have that, as a resource for you. But if things get tricky, here's what people don't remember about HELOCs. Back during the last real estate crisis we had, if people had HELOCs and they were paying on time, I know this happened to me. If you were paying on time, but you had a balance or whatever, what they would do is they would just say that the whole thing's due right away and they're not giving you any more money. So like at one point I had a HELOC where I was only using like 10% of what I could use. I was paying it on time, but I didn't want to pay it off because I was waiting for a house to sell that I was going to pay it off. And they just cut me off and said, we're not giving you any more HELOC money. And we want you to pay it all right now, right? What you owed. And then if you didn't, it was going to turn into a second mortgage.
Wow.
Instead of a HELOC, it would be locked in. You owe this, and now we're going to amortize it over the 30 years and create a loan. So if you do the HELOC, they can change the rules on you, even though that you're doing everything perfectly. The bank has that right usually. So just be real careful with that. Now, as far as refis, guys, maybe we should start putting this out as a message every week. If you're thinking about doing a refi, please don't do the refi till you do the right calculations to make sure it's worth doing the refi.
Right.
You could be a victim of what's called insurance
whoa.
mortgage churning.
Leave me
I'm
out
sorry.
of
Yeah, sorry. I beat you out, right? Mortgage churning. And what mortgage churning is, some people don't understand the cost of doing a refi. So they're going, wow, I can save a point on my refi. And let's say they calculate it and the point makes sense. So they go ahead and refi it, and they're paying for the refi cost. But
And most of the cost gets financed into your refi.
You could pay it out of your pocket, but a lot of people just throw the refi costs into the loan,
Most
which means you're eating up some of that equity.
It's still a cost, though.
It's a
It's
cost.
a cost.
Either which way. whether
And
it's
actually,
in
it's
the
a
loan
bigger
or-
cost because you're paying interest on that.
That's right.
Right, as opposed just the lump sum up front.
Sure.
So you even costing
True.
you more.
Yep.
So what a lot of people I saw when the interest rates were going down a lot, they take advantage because they were saving a point or a point and a quarter, and that made financial sense. Yeah, go ahead and do that. But then the interest rates dropped a quarter point, and they're refining their house again because they can now save another quarter point, but they're paying for the refi again. And a lot of times, what do the people do? They roll it into the mortgage.
I'm saving $100 a month, but I just reset my loan from 20 years to 30 years.
And it's going to take me and it's going to take me 5 years at $100 a month just to pay for the closing costs that I just to save the $100 a month. That makes no sense. So
I know when I did my refi, Mike laid it out. He's like, here's your cost, here's the number, here's the break even. If you're in your home this long, it makes sense. If you're going to sell prior, it doesn't make sense. Obviously, every situation's a snowflake, but your numbers is everything, and you're touching all on it, Jim.
It's
yes.
just like any other situation. Know your numbers.
That's it.
You got to know your numbers, and you got to have somebody that you can trust to do the numbers. That's the whole point about Mike. How many times have we seen here? All of us have done this, right? Ross has done it. I've done it. But how many times have we given people free advice about what their situation is? And Mike was like, you can do this if you want, but here are the downsides. And the downsides were, some of the downsides were the cost of doing it. And the cost of doing it was the money that Mike was going to make, right? But Mike doesn't do that. What Mike says is, I don't know if there's enough upside for you to want to do this, and this is why. I'll do it if you want me to do it, but here's the downside. That's who you're looking for to make these decisions.
Yeah, the one that says you shouldn't put money in my pocket to do this. It's not your best interest. I'll do it if you want to.
So if you have a mortgage company saying, hey, do a refi, you don't have to pay any costs, the cost might be rolled into that loan. They're not even giving you the option of paying the lump sum in the advertisement. Hey, get the loan. Doesn't cost you anything up front, right? Well, it's built into the loan. Now you're paying interest on that cost. And they don't talk to you about it. Mike is very transparent, get through anything. So if you're thinking, I'm confused, I don't know, should I refi, not refi? Give us a call. I promise we'll get you the right information.
That's it. FloridaTalkRealEstate.com. That's FloridaTalkRealEstate.com.
So I thought this was kind of interesting, and it kind of gets me back to Leah Bill. Makes sense. Does it make sense to buy or fixer upper, right? And because of the affordability right now of what's happening in today's market, sometimes the fixer upper is a really good move for people, and sometimes not so much. Okay. So why would you buy the fixer? What are the benefits of buying this is assuming that you're buying a resale home. If you're going to do a fixer upper versus new construction, and you could do both, I would probably pick new construction because the benefits in the long run, you don't have to worry about the roof for a long time. You have the most upgraded hurricane code done. Your insurance is going to be way lower. Jimothy knows that.
Sure.
And it would probably be better. But if you're not going to buy a new construction, if you're going to buy resale, buying a fixer-upper might be a really good thing for certain types of people. So why would you do that? Let's give an example like Lee. He bought in the 5s, and now the house is worth 7 figures. Okay. He had to put a lot of money into the house, though. Okay. So it isn't just pure profit. The reason why part of his value went up was the property values in the neighborhood, but also he put on a new roof. He renovated the interior of the main part of the house, right? He's working on the pool right now, right? He has solar systems that he's upgrading. All of that stuff, when it's all done and it's super Mac Daddy, the house is going to be really worth it. But even after he puts all the money into the house, he's still going to have way more equity than he would have if he was just waiting for appreciation to happen. One of the things that's really important when you buy a fixer-upper, you want to buy the fixer-upper below what everybody else is paying in the neighborhood because it's a fixer-upper.
Sure.
It's a little tougher to do that in today's market, but it can happen. Okay. So you have to crunch all the numbers. Now, when you buy a fixer-upper, what you should do is you should have a very good plan of what you want fixed up in the house. Find out what the budget for that is before you go in to negotiate on buying the house. You should do that as part of the inspection process so that you know the numbers, know your numbers, right? Of what the renovation that you expect to be making. And then try to negotiate that number off the price of the house if they haven't already adjusted the price as a fixer-upper, right? Really important to do that. Now, doing a fixer-upper is not always fun because why? You have to deal with contractors and you have to worry about staying on budget or going over budget. You have to worry about the time that the property is going to be under construction. You have to be well organized to do that the right way, and you got to stay on top of it. Hiring contractors to go do the job and not understand the construction schedule of what needs to be done for a second, third, fourth. If you're hiring a separate electrician from a plumber, from the cabinet installer to the countertop people, okay, you got to talk to all of them to find who needs to go what, where, because contractors, a lot of them aren't going to care. I'll go, oh, you hired me to do the electrical work, and they're going to do all their stuff. And the next thing you know, the plumber's like, I can't put that plug that way because my pipe is going there, right? So you got to make sure that you have to know, you have to be able to run the job right or find that you found the people that can run the job. The other thing is making sure that your contracts are right when you hire the contractor. One of the things I always do when I hire contractors, if it's a longer job and it's not like a 1 or 2 day job, if it's a longer job, I'm going to say, okay, how much money do you want to do this job and how long is it going to take? And a lot of time I'll give them a week extra or something and say, okay, I'll pay your price and I'm going to give you an extra week right now if you need it. If you finish on time, I'm going to give you a little bonus. If you finish earlier than the date that you gave me, I'm going to give you extra bonuses. But if you're late from the extra week I give you, I'm going to be taking a penalty from your bottom line. Okay. Good contractors will say, no problem, man, because you know what they're figuring? I'm going to get the job early. I'm going to get myself a bonus.
Right. He'll just put that job in front of another one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what you're paying for, right? But there's other people, when you go and you give them the contract and you say, these are the terms that you want included into their contract, they look freaked out and they start saying, I'm not sure I want to do that. And they look uncomfortable and they get all freaked out about it, right? So what do you think's happening there? And my attitude is, instead of worrying about making more money, like what I'm trying to get them the incentive to do to make more money, they're more worried about losing money. Now, why would they worry about losing money if you're offering them bonuses to finish early? Because they don't finish on time usually, and they know they're going to get burned.
Yep.
Right. So those are not the contractors you want to hire. Another tip, if you're going to hire contractors, there's a thing called workman's comp. Workman's comp is to protect the homeowner in a way so that if something happens on the job, tell me if I'm off about this, Ross, I think, but if something happens on the job, that insurance is going to take care of the person, the worker that got injured, and protect the homeowner. But there are also things called workman's comp exempt. And as I understand that, if you're a smaller company, instead of paying for workman's comp, which is very expensive, you can get an exemption on it somehow.
Yeah, like as an owner, you can be excluded. And then if it doesn't meet the minimum for the amount of employee, if it's you and I don't.
Right, you don't know the
we do a
exact
little.
term.
We do it. I have somebody that does it more than I do in my office. But I believe there's a number of employees where it's required.
Right.
But as an owner, you don't have to be counted as one of those employees. So then maybe you're not required to carry it.
Right. And that's the exemption part. But as a homeowner, I'm not sure I want to deal with workman comp exempt contractors, because I've heard, and this is why I'm not saying it's true, but I've heard that sometimes the workers can still come after the homeowner if they're not getting everything from workman's comp, and it becomes a headache for them. So I'd rather just have full workman's comp straight up. Also, if they're doing full workman's comp, like Pete Walsh from Walsh Handyman and Contracting, who's been on our show a couple of times. He's done a lot of work for our guys. He has full workman's comp. Now, he isn't even a GC right now, right? He's licensed as a handyman contractor. He has GCs that work with them and will work and make sure all permits are pulled, and the GCs will make sure they're running the job with Pete. But I'd rather have somebody that's willing to include in the cost of their budget that they're paying for that kind of insurance. It's just more protection for you.
I had somebody, one of my clients, they were doing a new roof or something like that, and one of the guys fell off the ladder and tried to sue my clients, but it was a workman's comp thing, and that took care of it.
Right. So be careful about that. Now, most people can make 10 to 20% extra equity besides their down payment if they buy the property right and they do the repairs and they know their numbers. And that's a pretty nice bump, 10 to 20%.
It's a great bump.
Imagine walking into your place, you're putting 10% down, but you got 30% equity in the house.
That'll work.
Right? That's a nice day, right?
Yeah.
You could take off the PMI right away if you had PMI going in, right? You might be able to go to Mike and say, hey, I just increased the value of my property, get the PMI,
right?
Private mortgage insurance off the mortgage payment. So there's a lot of opportunities there. So if you're thinking about fixer upper, I used to buy houses, fix them up and sell them. So you can't get much better than me and David Stein, who's my partner, talking about fixing up properties and selling them.
Yeah. So flipping's a little bit different than fixing it up to live in it, right? Because you have margins that you're looking for your profit on the sale.
Yes.
When you're going to live in it for 10, 20, maybe it's your forever home. Your margin is a little bit different, right?
And you have a better chance of buying it,
right?
Because if you're competing with an investor who's looking for the profit, they got to take about 35% off the value of the home.
They're shaving it, yeah.
Right? They got to shave 35% off the top minimum in order to make their money. But a regular person, you can compete with those people as long as you have the right financing. You can compete with those people and offer a little bit more. They're trying to make a killing so they can make a profit because they got to pay capital gains taxes and all this other stuff that they got to include in there. Regular buyer doesn't have to do that. So they can still get the discount,
right?
But not as deep a discount as the investors are asking, and probably win that bidding war.
Probably.
Right? And try to get it. Now, there are a couple tricks to it. You have to make sure that the place is insurable if you're getting financing to buy the house. You can't just buy a place with a hole in the roof and think that you're just going to buy the house now and get insurance for it for your lender and then fix the hole in the roof later. You're not going to be able to do that. So you have to have a good agent to know, is the fixer-upper too much for regular financing or not?
Is it too fixer and not enough upper?
Upper, yeah. And then there's another option. The other option is, if it is like that, what you could do is you could do what's called a 203K construction. 203K construction loan, FHA 203K, and there's a conventional construction loan. You could go that way if you want to. So there's a lot of ways to save in today's market. So if you're worried about affordability, but you're not worried about some elbow grease or hiring contractors and running them as a job to make up equity in the house, it's a great option for people.
FloridaTalkRealEstate.com. Knowledge is power. And I got a team of pros that are very knowledgeable in all of the moving parts. It's FloridaTalkRealEstate.com.
I thought there was an article I thought was kind of interesting in Business Insider. 2 boomers from Chicago who bought homes in Florida share why they're retiring in the Sunshine State, right? And what they miss about Illinois. But what I found kind of interesting in this article were the statistics. So they had some updated statistics about migration. Remember, I've been saying we're going to look back at this period as one of the pivotal points of Florida in general, the whole state, of the most people leaving the state and a lot of people coming in. And the people coming in are different than the people leaving. So it's changing all our demographics financially and things like that. And this had some information. So let me share that with you today. Between 2021 and 2022, 739,000 people moved to Florida. Okay. During that time, 35,000 or about 5% came from Illinois. Okay, so that was kind of interesting. Now, where did the rest of the 700, where were the biggest demographic people coming to Florida? The states they were coming from, number one is New York. No surprise there. Number two is California, which I think a lot of people are surprised because as I've been a realtor and a newspaper reporter, Florida and California were like the twin sisters from each side of the country, if you will. And then Florida's changed much differently, but California's changed too. We've become more reddish, and California became bluer and bluer, and it's like kind of crazy, but those kind of changes happen. But I'm surprised at how many people is the number 2 state is California moving to Florida. I thought that was interesting.
Well, they're very same in that north and south are very different places.
That's true too, because you grew up there.
Totally different worlds.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It really
both
is different.
states.
Yep. It's almost like 2 states.
It
right?
really
Just
is.
like
Just
Florida.
a big divide in the states. Yeah.
Mhm. The third state is New Jersey, and then the fourth state is Georgia. That's another surprising one to me. I don't think of people from Georgia moving to Florida. Now, there's a ton of people moving from Florida to Georgia right now.
Unless they're just going like across the state.
Yeah, maybe
line,
they're
like
they're crossing the Swanee River or something.
Yeah.
That's it. Couple other things I thought was
I don't see a big Atlanta to Palm Beach
Right.
migration. you
now,
know?
and here's the thing that people, when they talk about all these people coming to Florida, they're not taking into consideration that other people are moving from Florida. So while we had 35,000 people come from Illinois to Florida, that same year, 14,000 moved from Florida to Illinois.
Huh.
Right. So we only had a net of 20 right there. Now, the other thing that's interesting, nearly
I hope
half.
they moved to Streeter.
I'm
That
sorry?
place sucks.
Where?
Streeter, Illinois.
I don't know that.
I moved there. It was a
Why
terrible
is everybody
decision.
laughing? What's the deal with
Just a
Streeter?
story from
Oh,
many
okay.
years ago.
I never
Yeah.
even heard of that.
Well,
Is that a city?
I'm just plant the seed right now.
I'm
Don't
gonna
ever
look it up.
bother. Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Streeter, Illinois.
Makes me want to go.
I think that's what it says on the sign when you drive in. Streeter, Illinois. Why bother?
About a
Population 3.
quarter of the people moving to Florida are boomers. So most of them are retirees. Now, some of them I'm going to call, making up my own name, super boomers. So what's a super boomer? It's called the silent generation. That's people that were born before 1946. Okay. They call that the silent generation. Never heard of that before. I'm going to call them super boomers.
I spent my 21st birthday at a strip club in Streeter called the Lamplighter, and I'm pretty sure the featured dancer that night was a super boomer. she was an
That's
amputee
funny. I
too.
like that.
I wish I was making that part up.
She's still there.
That's so funny.
Everybody goes to see her.
Rhonda.
She was an amputee too. I wish I made that part up.
I
I'll
saw-
never forget her. She's a
I
big
saw-
part of my history. My 21st. Oh, what a great night.
I saw a meme of a picture of what it would be like if the villages in in Central Florida, for the biggest retirement community in the country, if they had a Hooters, what it would look like if the Hooters were age appropriate
I think Ross is
for the
Googling
villages. It was
Lamplighter
pretty
right
funny
now on
meme.
Streeter.
I am.
So 25% of the people, or roughly a quarter of the people moving down here, are boomers, and another 5.8%. So we're talking about 30% of these people are either super boomers or boomers. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, nearly half of all the people moving to Florida, they're buying a home. The average home they're buying are about 500,000, right? So not everybody coming down is looking for the multi-million-dollar homes. It isn't super rich all moving down here, but they're buying about a $500,000 home. Let me see. Now, we lost in that same year. Okay, we had 739,000 people come between 2021 and 2022. 500,000 people left. So we only had a net of 250,000 people.
Huh.
That's what when people talk to me all the time when I'm sitting at the table and they're selling, it's like, oh, I know I'm going to get cash and I'm going to get some rich New Yorker come down and buy my house. And I go, well, that might happen.
Maybe.
Right. But just as many people are leaving as coming. And it's really important to bring that up. And that's the part of the story I don't think is being written about in the news right now. Like if I were a reporter, I'd be doing the zig while everybody's zagging. It's important to let them know how many people are coming. There's no doubt, but it's also just as an interesting demographic change we're going through of how many people are leaving. And when I say leaving,
Well, we got to we're the third most populous state, right?
1.9% growth year over year.
Yeah.
And it's growth. I
Yeah.
mean, there's
Yes,
no
it
doubt
is
about
growth.
I mean, there's still a lot of people leaving. I mean,
Yeah.
you're making that point, but there
Yeah.
is growth. Yeah.
And the people that are leaving, what I'm seeing is they're not the wealthy people that are coming in. The people leaving are more blue class working collar people, just working people, working professionals, working tradesmen, whatever. They're just tired of it. They're tired of the insurance. They're tired of the congestion. They're tired of the price increases.
Heat.
And a lot of them want slower area. They do not want to move to another big city or a big metropolitan area. They want to be quiet, right? They want to go someplace where it's less hectic. That's what we're seeing.
Well, they shouldn't be moving around here. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it is hectic.
No, they're not. They're
They're moving out. I mean,
Yeah.
even our friends that have moved. I mean, again, they're getting away from the heat and they're getting away from the congestion. Those are the two big reasons why they left.
And what you can
one
buy
was
for
Tennessee.
like $450 in like Tennessee or
Georgia,
North Carolina versus what you can get for $450 here is drastically
It's
different.
true. The one thing I always wondered about the people that are moving to those states is how hard it's going to be, because they're all working class people. They're not like retired. So when I see them, I wonder how they're going to find a good paying job, because they're going to be paid less in those states usually too. We usually get paid more.
Really?
I'm assuming, I might be wrong about that, because we are a right to work state. But it's kind of interesting, this whole demographic change, and I thought that these numbers were kind of interesting, and that's why I brought it up.
They very much are, and that's just part of keeping your finger on the pulse of a constantly moving real estate market. And man, it is. Even when we're going sideways, we're moving, right, Jim?
Yeah. And if you're trying to weigh the market, if you're trying to be a diviner or finding out what's going to happen in the market, and you're making your decision on real estate, if it's not investment property, that's different. But if it's your homestead, or you're thinking about buying a homestead, and you're trying to see what's going to happen in the market to make a decision what you want to do, it's okay to do that. But even the economists are wrong all the time. How many times have we said year after year at the end of the year what the economists predicted the year before was going to happen at this time? Didn't happen, right? So how long have we been talking about that recession? 4 years now? 4 years we've been talking about recession. Where is it? Where? Come on, right? I understand that people are uncomfortable. I get worried too. I'm always looking. I'm on the radar, see, hey, is anything going to change in the market? But for 4 years, it really hasn't happened. We just haven't seen anything. I almost feel like the PTSD that we got during that last real estate crash from 2006 through 2013, right? That's 7 years. It was so bad that nobody has a real perspective of what it's like. And I guess it's kind of like when you get traumatized, let's say something bad happened in your life, or like you get robbed or something, and you've never had that in your life, and then it happens one time, which is really scary.
Yeah.
And then your whole life is judged through that filter through the rest of your
It's
life.
like the people who went through the Depression and never put $1 in the bank and kept it under their mattress.
Yep.
So what you really should do is look at the real numbers and not just base everything on your gut, because your gut is probably not where the reality is.
Right.
It's really important to know that.
It is important, and it's important to have a team supporting you when you're making a big purchase. When you're buying or selling a home, might be the biggest transaction financially that you're ever involved with until the next one possibly. But you got to have people that are great at what they do, supporting you, helping you figure out your right path. I got a team of pros at floridatalkrealestate.com. That's floridatalkrealestate.com, your one-stop real estate shop. We refer to that as such for that very reason. You got a remarkable collection of people. They work cohesively together. Jimothy and I here on a Saturday to make a radio with them because, well, it's just awesome to be attached to a wonderful team. And we have utilized their expertise many times as well. You can too. floridatalkrealestate.com. Know it, use it, love it, share it. You gonna watch a little football this weekend, Ross? Are you Team Lamar?
Yes, I am.
Team Lamar.
Let's go.
I'm with you. Lamar Jackson. Let's go get this done.
Yeah, local boy.
Local boy.
Local
Yeah,
boy.
I know
Why
there's a
not?
bunch of Florida dudes playing this weekend, but
Yeah.
Lamar.
Yeah,
let's
but
go.
I mean, That's the guy right
That's the
now.
guy?
That's the guy right now.
Come on.
Yep.
Ross Komarinetz, Brightway Insurance, Juno Beach. I hope you have a great weekend. Go Lamar Jackson and the Ravens.
Thank you. You too. Go Lamar Jackson in the Ravens.
I like it. Well said. Jimothy, you're going to do a sports show with Greek and Joe. I'm sure you guys will talk a little bit of Ravens, huh?
I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe not.
A little bit. All right. We'll find out shortly. I'll be tuned in.
A pretty good chance.
Women's soccer, probably.
Probably women's soccer, volleyball. Olympics are coming up. Greek's huge into the Olympics. They'll probably talk a lot about that.
Hell yeah.
Paris is coming up here before you know. Jimmy D, I hope you have a great weekend, my friend. Always a pleasure to have you with us on a Saturday. Thank you for all that you do for everybody every day, and try to get a little rest this weekend if you can.
I'm going to try. I just want to say, Harry, thank you for calling. He called the 888 number. He has a question on a specific property, so I'll be calling you right after the show.
There you go, Harry.
And give anybody else wants help from Jim or the rest of the team, just call 888-973-7828. Have a great weekend.
Find that hotline at floridatalkrealestate.com. And yes, have a great weekend. We'll be back at it next Saturday. Florida Talk Real Estate, 2 hours of infotainment every Saturday right here on Real Radio.